computer, the internet, if you have all three, what can you do with it? How can you optimize it? How can you take advantage of this opportunity and this time and age that we're in to build products or to be innovative or to just go about disrupting the economy as it is today. My name is Ayotunde. I ex-Flutterwave. I'm still very much in tech space. I currently am a co-founder of a startup called PointSport. We're still in the very, very, very early stages. I'm sure that's why Sheung thought it was best for me to come here to speak to both yourself, Gabriel, and Marvin because of my experience. So I'll start with Gabriel. Can we meet you, please? Thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity and time and to actually even have this conversation. My name is Gabriel. I am the CEO and co-founder of a platform called TechChack. And just a little background about myself. I have background. Originally, I was an economics graduate. And after my economics degree, I decided to switch my field into the tech space. I specifically majored in the cloud infrastructure area of things. And I'd spent about 6-7 years doing that before. And during the process, I've been teaching people how to get into tech, how to, break into cloud space. And one of the challenges I encountered at that time was I needed a training management system to actually deliver my trainings, get users to pay me and all of those flow processes. Basically, I wanted to streamline the training administration. So in the process of building that solution for myself, one of the things I thought about was I know there are thousands of other people who would need this exact solution too. So I started building out TechChat as a platform where creators and course creators can actually post their knowledge and then get paid for it and have one place where all of the end-to-end process go. And up to today, I'm still with TechChack and I still also do consulting in terms of building infrastructure for like different corporations. I've worked with Nike, WWE, and also my recent employment is consultancy is actually with Centene. That's a leading healthcare agency in the United States for insurance. And I'm still exploring. I do a lot of back-end engineering to payments, integration systems, and cloud. AWS is like my favorite cloud environment, and I'm a data guy too. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Gabriel, for that, because I like the story of how you were able to build a product because you wanted to solve a problem for yourself. And in the process of solving that problem for yourself, you realize that there'll be 1,000, possibly 1,000,000 more people that are looking for this exact same solution. Yeah, exactly. I think that's a way to go with building products in today's day. Yeah. Hi, Marvin. Can we get to know you?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. So my name is Marvin. I'm normally based in San Francisco, even though I travel a lot. So quick thing about me, what I do now, I'm a VC, so I have a small VC fund that invests in European pre-seed founders coming to the US market. I also have what I call I invest through a holding company as well as through my fund. So I have 2 investment vehicles. And so I do, through my investment vehicle, the holding company that I run with my partner from Saudi Arabia, we invest globally. And so we do mainly like seed to Series A as well as LP checks into funds. But how I got here, I spent like 25 years in tech. Still in tech, right? But I've been here in San Francisco almost 25 years. Started off doing the startup thing for a couple of years. So I was very early at a startup that raised about $63 million before it imploded. I was a tech executive, so I ran Yahoo's international expansion. So I did that for about 10.5 years. I was an angel investor for a couple of years and did the boards, the survey boards, and have been a VC since then. So I was a partner who started the San Francisco office for 500 startups. So I did that for about 6 years. And after that, after I left 500, I ran a gaming holding company. And so we had about like 18 companies all in the gaming space, split between LA, Frankfurt, Germany, and Ukraine. So I did that for about 2 years and I have been investing sort of the whole time as well too, through my different investment vehicles. But now what I mainly do, I left the holding company like last year. And so now I mainly just invest most of my time.
Yeah, I actually looked up on you, and I heard when you were talking to one of the people that you interviewed, and you guys talked about how you've been to 7 time zones in the last 6 months. Do you still travel that much?
Yeah, it's nuts. I just got back after a 3.5 week trip through Europe and Middle East. So
Oh,
I'm back on the road next week. So, a lot of my companies are overseas. I also sit on several boards of different sort of like funds and different like government entities and companies. And so I have to travel a lot.
okay. So I'll just throw this question at you guys. Do I ask one question and everyone and both of you share your perspective, or do I ask him one question and then you the next? What would work best for you and
We're
Daniel?
happy to do whatever. I'm happy to do whatever. I'm easy.
Okay, so for me, I will throw out one question and I'll let you both answer it. Daniel will go first and you go after for the first one, and then the next one you go first and Daniel go after. So
Sounds good.
we're gonna mix it like that. Okay, so what does the digital economy today mean to you? If you're gonna today in today's digital, everything is now we're moving towards the digitization space. What does that mean to you, Daniel?
You mean Gabriel, right? Gabriel?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Gabriel.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Just thank you for that. So, in my own understanding of digital economy, it's pretty much the shift, because in the way I look at it, I try to use like an analogy. In the past, maybe like 10 or decades before now, the way businesses in itself, or the way economy actually works, is currently different from now. And the shift between having a lot more tangible services to actually offer between different parties and different people that are involved is going from like being object into like being more of like something that is not necessarily, it's not physically seen, which can be sort of in terms of services, can be in software. So a lot of things have actually been converted. And also that also boils down to a lot of shifts that happened between pre-COVID and post-COVID. A lot of things changed. And for me, the experience of digital economy in my own experience came from the time when I got into cloud, where I had to go into office, and I had to do a lot of things in office. I couldn't make certain deployments if I wasn't present in a specific location. But today it's a different case. I can actually be here and I could be doing a deployment to somewhere in Europe, or I could be doing something in Middle East, and it's like a global world where everything comes together, and it's like everything looks soft now. Like you can actually remotely do a lot of things that way. So that's the way I view digital economy.
Thank you. Thank you, Gabriel. Over to you, Marvin.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll pile onto that. I think now sort of like you can literally start a business and serve customers and clients anywhere in the world. And so when I think about the digital economy, it's the internet, right? So there's two good things that come out of this. Number one, like, think about before the internet, like how hard it was to find like information. Now you have like things like Google and YouTube. And so like you can, self-education now is actually more real than it ever has been. So you can teach yourself things that you couldn't do before. Like, and so I've been in the internet economy now for like 24, 25 years. And I think if you look at all the technologies that come out, they just make it easier and easier, opens up access to more and more people. And makes it easier and easier for more and more people to access this, right? Like if you have like information is limitless now, it's people's capacity to learn, and there's not just their capacity, but their enthusiasm to learn. Like all the information is there, whether you want to get it or not, right? Whether you want to go and learn this thing or not. And so I just think like what this has done is this has opened up opportunities for everybody. And so all the opportunities are there. It's just whether you want it or not. And I also think, especially since the pandemic, we've seen, I actually think like, if you are in, it's the opportunities for people coming from like what I call like developing countries versus our developed countries. I think the people in developed countries are too lazy now, and they need to be much more competitive. You see a lot more hungrier people sort of like coming online, from India, from Africa, from all over the place, Latin America. And so the capacity now is just like you're going to see a big shift of like white collar jobs away from the developed countries to developing countries, and that's a huge opportunity for all of us in general, right? And for people like me who are here, grew up in Canada, live in the US, like it's just going to become much more competitive because competition will now become global. So you just have to be better and better. You just have to be better than you ever used to have to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much for that. For me, when I think about the digital economy, the first thing that comes to my mind now is that the world is a global village, right? Just one place. there's one centered place, and it's the internet. And anyone can go to the internet and get any information from anywhere in the world, as long as you have access to that internet. So that's how I see it. Thank you very much for your explanations for that. I'm going to go real quick into the realities of today. For an everyday person, can you speak to how, like, I know, Marvin, I know you just mentioned now on how the information is out there, right? The information is there for everyone in every space, in every industry, from tech to fashion to food. There's tech in everything, to agriculture. There's just opportunities there, right? So if you want to speak to an everyday person on how they can actually tap into these opportunities, how would you speak to them? What would you tell them?
I think the first thing is about getting educated. And when I say getting educated, it doesn't mean like going to university. I'm actually very anti-university these days. I actually think like there's just so many podcasts out there. There's so many YouTube videos of just like brilliant business people, brilliant, employees, brilliant, like whatever you choose to sort of like want to learn. Like you want to be a chef, you want to learn how to cook things, you want to learn how to fix your laundry machine, right? Like there's a YouTube video on it. And so it's just sort of like investing time to go and like learn these things, and search for this. And so, or even like doing long form, where it's just like everyone's so used to these like short form, like TikTok videos, where it's like try to find a way to sort of like sit down and listen to like a 1 hour sort of like lecture from like Harvard University. Like all these things are available now to sort of like learn. And so I don't think there's any excuse now for anybody to sort of like not, to not pick up stuff that is actually going to be useful for yourself and to educate yourself. And so that's the first step. It's just like you got to get educated first, right? Learn how to sell, learn how to build products, learn how to use things like Bubble, or even learn how like Amazon Web Services works, right? There's tons of classes on this. Like whatever you want to do, there are classes that can teach you these things, and a lot of them are free.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Over to you, Gabriel.
I think that's a very interesting question. Already, I think a lot of things that has been said. I would just maybe Marvin pretty much mentioned the part of it that actually hit me about the traditional system of education everyone was being used to versus what we currently have right now. There's like a very big shift. A very good example is myself. I spent 4 years in the university to study economics. I spent another 2 years to get my master's degree. And today, everything I have learned in terms of academics that I'm currently applying to my own life today, that is in my career today, I learned them post graduate school, which is me actually taking it upon myself to do a lot of research, spending time to watch videos, YouTube videos, finding people that are actually already doing what you want to do, and then networking with those people, asking them questions, and then continuous learning and practice, especially for the digital part of things, which is more towards tech. Like I was able to pick up AWS Cloud on my own, did a certification, got my first job with WWE. And after that, I was able to also move into the area of big data engineering. And now I'm doing machine learning, and I'm also building products. So I'm also learning about the workings of, different application developments and how to consolidate these things and work with different teams. So that everything to actually boils down to the fact that I did not learn this thing in the traditional system of education we're currently going through today. It was through my own research and asking questions continuously. So yeah, that.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to speak to that as well, because I currently am building a product and I'm just using AI to build a product that's going to work on WhatsApp. That's just all I'm trying to do. So I'm using AI and I'm using WhatsApp to build the product. So I'm taking the bots from AI and I'm using them to build the product to serve people via WhatsApp. This is something that I didn't learn in school. I didn't have to go to school to learn that. You understand? The first thing I did was have an interest in AI, and then I asked it questions. I played around with it. I did a few things here and there, voila, yeah. And I also, there's a part in Marvin's teachings when he mentioned how there will definitely in the future be tools that would allow you to build products without needing to code. You wouldn't even need to have a coding experience to be able to build that. I know you mentioned that where you said something about your daughter being able to use that in the next like 10, 15 years. There'll just be tools that they can apply and then build products. And I think that some of those product tools are already here. AI is one of them that I've been able to use now to build something. And that product is currently serving people as of today. So The next question is for Marvin. As a VC, what portfolios pique your interest? What portfolios, like what kind of businesses are the businesses you kind of have like a major interest in?
Yeah, I started off doing being a generalist investor and really more on the consumer side. And I think as I've gotten older, I do a lot more business to business stuff. So like enterprise software, SaaS, developer tools, fintech as well too. And I do a lot of, and now I'm starting to do a bunch of defense tech related things because the world's becoming, as we've been learning in Ukraine and learning in Israel, it's a very dangerous place. And so I'm starting to do a lot more of this. It's not a world I want to see, but it is what it is, right? Sort of, so I still care a lot about sort of this country's been very good to me. So, we need to protect it or protect the globe, what I call sort of like the global sort of like world, right? Of just like there are, most, this is something that I think that if you asked me a year and a half ago, I would not have sort of like, I'd be like, yeah, no way I'm going to do this, right? I don't want to see more weapons out in the world. But unfortunately, there are barbarians out there. And so these weapons are necessary. And there are people, and I say this without going super political, just like, China hates us. And so I say this as an American and a Canadians, like they hate us, and I'm Taiwanese. And so like the best way to sort of prevent war is to sort of prepare for it, right? And so that's sort of what I'm spending a lot of time on these days. But I'm still doing SaaS, right? Like solving real problems, working with entrepreneurs. Like for me, impact is about investing in like super smart founders that have high potential that want to solve problems at scale. And so that's what I've been spending the last 10 and a half years of my life doing. And so these are the important things for me.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Marvin. I like that you talked about defense tech because it starts from data. I mean, for me, from the lowest level, it starts from data governance, right? So, and then you walk all your way down to the top. Correct me if I'm wrong around that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like cybersecurity, right? Like not just for governments and businesses, but also for us. This is going to be a huge issue going forward. And even things like how do you deal with like AI fakes? Like just these are all toolboxes. Unfortunate part about technology is that it's double edged, right? It can be used for good and it can be used for bad. And so you kind of, it's like it'll be an arms war of just sort of the hackers and the unfortunately sort of like the criminals versus sort of like the good guys, and this is going to be an ongoing arms war. So these are all spaces that I'm like looking at because this is going to be really, really important. Like we are all very lucky because I think we're fairly like tech savvy. Like think about our parents, right, or our grandparents who are not. And so scam artists go after old people, and think about the deep fake tools that they're going to be able to use to trick them. That's scary, and or even for us, right? Like so it's just like this is a scary new world, and we want to make the internet sort of like friendly and safe for everybody.
Yeah, all right. Thank you very much. Gabriel, I'm going to ask you a different question. And the question I'm going to ask you is around products, right? Can you speak to product development and originality?
So in terms of product development and originality, I think I would just, I'll put this based on my perspective and, my experience building, product in the past. So I've acted in two different capacities. I've acted in the capacity of someone who's actually coming in as an employee to a product that is not necessarily like, that is in the face of, well, above ideation and then currently getting into the market and having to put like different strategies together for them. And I'm also going to speak from the viewpoint of myself being a founder, having to actually come up with an idea that is not necessarily unique, but just trying to put it to a point. So I think there is a different perspective. And I think the perspective I want to really emphasize more on is me as a founder myself. And something about product development that I can say is, for one thing, if you're thinking about getting into product development and you're just thinking to quickly make money, I think it's most likely not the best route for you. Like it involves the early stages involves so much of having to burn like nights that you would continuously have to reemphasize and continuously find the uniqueness of your product. And even for me, up till now, I still get to a point where I take a look at my product and I continuously stalk my competitors to look for the edges that I'm gonna have over like just to kind of like. And also another thing about it is the kind of team the kind of team you're putting together. For me, I initially had a team that, almost frustrated me out of even the idea itself, because I'm building a SaaS application, and with SaaS products, it's more like a business to business, where we are delivering like software product for creators to use to serve their own people. So the frustration from their customers are definitely something they transfer back to us. So having a team that is not reliable would bring a lot of problem. And also, it's not even about how much you're paying the team. There's a lot that has to do with how much belief they have in you yourself and the product. Because no matter what, my developers, sometimes they try to work even outside of business hours, weekends, just to solve bugs and make sure things are being cleaned up. And overall, having a deep understanding of what you're building yourself, like having to have experienced it as a problem yourself, gives another perspective. And also, I think the part of the trickiest part that I've actually had to help people build something out of is where non-technical founders, right, and building software product, there is a part of it where you can, it's a little tricky not having a technical co-founder and having to deal with a lot of those yourselves. There's so much that needs to be understood in terms of the technical piece of things. In terms of uniqueness, which is of your product, I feel like there's necessarily not a new idea. And I think this is more of something that I guess Marvin would have probably had a lot of different, ideas that people have brought to him and all that. But personally, I feel like it's now you looking at an existing idea that probably exists and you creating your uniqueness out of it, meaning like what are your competitive edges and what are the things that your competitors are doing that you're doing differently, except it's a completely new invention. And it's like, I think that's almost tough to find, something that no one has ever done before. So those are like I think for me, it's so much more that people think before getting into product development that they don't know before getting into it. And when they get into it, they're like, oh, okay, this is how it looks. Also, I guess one last thing on bootstrapping, like finance. For me, I'm also bootstrapping because I worked for about 7 years and my jobs they were paying me very well. And that was one of the advantages I have getting into tech. So I was able to save up a lot of money to continuously build my product to a stage where I can acquire a certain number of customers. Then I start going out to, get the funds for it. So, being able to also finance the business and not having to, so you can get the right talents and skills to continuously push it and not go out of business is, one of the things I say there. But so much more, but I guess I'll keep it short.
Okay. I have one more question and then we'll deep dive into the brain, the computer, and the internet. Not even a question. I think it's just a sentence I want to speak on. And I would like Marvin to just please expand on it to me. So as a product person, right? One of the main, for me, I consider this to be the main theme of product development. People call it the customer-centric approach, right? I call it customer obsession. I would like you to just speak more to that.
At the end of the day, I think so customer session is just, letting the customer help guide what they actually want, right? Because a lot of times you think you know what they want, but you actually don't. And so this idea of customer session, you should have a strong vision and view on sort of what the problem is, but you use the customer sort of like your touchstone to understand, like, am I building the right thing for you? I think we agree that it's the same problem that we're trying to fix, but is this the right way to fix it? And what is an easy way for them to sort of like use this product in a way that sort of like fixes this problem very, very quickly? That's kind of how I think about it, right? Like customers are basically data points to help you fix their problem better.
Okay.
They're your guide.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about the brain, the computer, and the internet today. What are the opportunities there for, number one, people who are looking to innovate? Number two, people who already have products that they're trying to navigate through. They don't know exactly, okay, so I have this idea in my head, or I'm already currently trying out this product. What do we tell this kind of people? Because I'm sure that there are a lot of people on this call right now who are tech enthusiasts and they just want to know how to go about it. They have a computer, they have the internet, and they have the brain. So they're just like probably trying to just process. I know you mentioned earlier that people should spend time learning, going online to learn, but are there other things that they need to do to stay on the edge, to stay at the top of the list, or to make them more innovative in whatever sense, whatever business aspects they are in? Because at the end of the day, it's not just, we can't just focus only on SaaS products, tech products. There are also a lot of other kind of products that people can dive into in the tech space.
I can, Gabriel, do you want to go, or I can go?
You go. You go for it.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I think there's a bunch of things, just some things that go through my mind based on that comment and question. One of the things that I'll say is that, don't spend, you want to do research, right? But don't over research, right? Like, because sometimes over researching is just sort of like you kind of hiding, right? And not wanting to get like real feedback, because sometimes the feedback of the danger that you don't want to be in is just sort of like all you're doing is building and building and building and not actually going and talking to customers and not talking to users and not getting feedback. And so I'll use a story. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday. He's a founder of a fairly successful company, but he's telling me about his first, and he comes from the engineering background. And so he's like, him and his team spent like 9 months building this, like the best app that possibly could sort of exist. And then what happened is just like, it was amazing. They went and talked to the investor, and then the investor's like, this is the best app that we've ever seen, but like, I don't think anyone's going to buy this. Like, have you talked to any customers? They literally wasted like 9 months, like working on the most perfect product for a problem that didn't really exist, for customers that they didn't even know, right? Like, so I think like there's a, you don't want to be like that, or just like, look, you want to build to a certain level, but you want to get feedback from customers as soon as possible. And if the feedback is negative, you go back to the drawing board. You don't want to waste time building. And so if you come from a tech background, you're much more likely to just go and build without like talking to folks. And because it's hard, right? Because like, you don't want people to tell you that your baby's ugly. But like the sooner you hear that, the sooner you can at least like fix it, right? So that's probably the first thing I would say. And learn, like there's a great book I recommend for any product developers. It's called The Mom Test. It's actually one of the best books of like learning how to interview and talk with users and customers. It's called The Mom Test. And it's a book I recommend to everybody. And I try to reread it at least like once every year or two, because just it's a good reminder, sort of like, like get feedback, right? Get feedback as soon as possible.
Yeah, can you drop the name in the chat for us, please?
Oh yeah, sure. Let me.
Thank you, and the name. Okay, are you done, Marvin?
I'm done.
Okay, Gabriel, you'll go on that one, please. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Interestingly, Marvin actually touched on something I am currently going through right now, and it's about the understanding if your product or whatever your service you're giving is actually solving real problem or is actually answering people's problems. So meaning listening to your customers. And the way I experienced this was because my first sort of version 1 of the product I built, I had like so many users that were coming interested in the product. But the problem for me was my team wasn't necessarily listening to the users. We just felt like, oh, this is a cool feature. Let's build this feature out. So we ended up building so much features, and the product itself was great. But the features we added that we thought the users would find cool, we were there when we released those features. 90% of those features were not used, and we ended up having to listen to what they actually needed and started refining and refactoring things. And also that's one. And two is also, I feel like, not focusing on like the quantity, but the quality. And this is in terms of when it comes to customers too. When you are actually building or you have any sort of service, it's better for you to have, when you have your very small amount of customers that you are able to focus on and listen to them and give them and work around their needs. It's easier for them to give your information to other people, and then which is the best form of sales, which is the word of mouth. People are happy to refer you to other people, because they trust that you can actually deliver that. And that's one. Another thing is, if you're building, for people that are building anything close to maybe software products, mostly there is something called technical debt. So meaning avoiding problems at the early stage that could cost you way more problems in the future. And it happens a lot of times because the more your database grows, the more your customer base grows, it's tougher to make certain adjustments in the future. So I've been asked to be brought on board with certain companies that are doing really well, like big companies in the United States, that there are issues that they have not addressed. And this is even at the infrastructure level, not even at the application level. Issues they've not addressed at the early stage of building that is now beginning to affect users as they scale. So a lot of people build and they don't think about what happens if I scale today, meaning even if you're offering like consulting services, if you're offering like advisory services, there's always the idea of, if you have 5 people today, what if the 5 people convert to 500 people? How do you intend to undo that scaling and still maintaining the same or even better quality of service to them? So I think that's a very, that's something I've also had to deal with when we're building, and we had a lot of the way we structured our APIs, like backend coding system and conventions, that now at some point we started having issues with, the scaling part, which we went back to the drawing board, rewrote the architecture, which took a lot of time, manpower, and a lot of stress on everyone's part. So I think that's something else that can also be important to sort of like keep yourself afloat and stay on top.
All right. Thank you very much. So this last question, I don't know who will take it first, but it's just before we start asking the audience if they have any question. The question is really around what kind, if you were to advise your child today, and your child is a tech enthusiast, what kind of what field would you tell them to focus on? Like, okay, you guys, there's a lot happening here. I think you guys should focus on this, and what would that be? Who's going first?
I could try first.
Okay, Graham.
Yeah, if you want. Yeah. So, and once again, I'm gonna speak from my experience. I think what I would actually recommend first is to pick up even if the child wants to go into data, wants to go into any part of tech, I would just say pick up one programming language, and then focus on it, understand how it works, and then a lot of things will come in place. And the reason I said this was because a lot of people trying to get into tech that are new into tech, they ignore the basics. They leave every other thing and they just jump to what would get them the job immediately. I mean, that's a good approach. The only problem with that is it leads to frustration, because the process of learning is important, and how you learn is important, and who you are learning and what you're also learning at that point in time is important. So one of the things I did, but I still did not do right, but I'm currently guiding a lot of people towards it right now, is the way they learn, the foundation they learn on top. So I always advise, if you're getting into anything close to software development, just learn the basics first, go through that path. If you're getting into anything that looks like maybe cloud, anything around infrastructure, in fact, doing data analysis, starting from a point, being a data analyst could also help, because the little things, understanding data structures, how they work, all of these things are foundations on which a lot of things are built on top. Because you could get to a point where you're doing APIs, you're doing backend APIs, you are getting data returned to you, and they look strange, because the foundation of what a payload from the result of a request is sent is a simple, data structure object that could have been learned at the initial state, that would actually enhance your learning experience while moving. So I feel like the foundation is really, really important and should not be ignored to help you, learn better and a smooth journey.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gabriel. Everyone, the foundation is the most important part. You have to build a strong foundation. Over to you, Marvin.
I'm going to take a little bit, like I agree with that. I think, learn a programming language, anyone, doesn't matter. I think it's helpful. Like even it's like HTML, DHTML, it doesn't matter. Like it's very basic, but it's just good to have that foundation. But the other thing I would say is I'll take a little bit different view, is like really going like understand like human psychology, go and take classes on like, learning like sales, marketing, copywriting. I actually think these are skills that even with AI are not going to go away. And ultimately it's really about sort of like how you interact with people and how you sell or help people in general. So I would actually, that's and basics of project management. So project management, sales, marketing, those are probably, and some basic sort of like programming language would be my guidance.
Okay. Okay.
Very
Thank you.
simple, but most people
Yeah.
don't do this, right? But
Yep.
these are the foundations for thriving for however the world turns.
Yes, yes, because whether there's the internet or not, whatever is coming, you'll still stay relevant because what you have would be like hands-on skills, and some of those things can be programmed into, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Marvin. Thank you very much. I'm going to take a quick break to see if there are any questions from the guests, if anyone has a question. Otherwise, I have about 3 more questions. That means 6 answers before we go. Is anyone in the audience? Does anyone in the audience have a question for Marvin and Gabriel? Okay, Sharon, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. One of the first questions I want to ask, Marvin, you're a VC, right? So what are those things you are looking into tech startup that you're going to invest in? So that's my question for you, Marvin. And Gabriel, I know that you're actually a tech founder, right? So
Yeah.
some of us here on this group, we are master students, PhD students. How can we transform what we are learning in school, in the uni, to form of edtech stuff so that, the whole world is flat, fine. To get job is difficult part of the world because how many companies do we will have? So if we go to school, we learn something, a master's, an undergraduate, or a PhD, how can we translate it to edtech so that other people can learn? Those are my questions.
So
Yeah. Go ahead, Gabriel.
okay. Yeah, I'll go. Thanks for that question. So, and interestingly enough, I love to speak from experience. And when I remember when I started teaching, like this was about 5, 6 years ago. So I had a cousin in Nigeria. Then he was in his second year of college. So I'd been introduced to him when I got here. That was when I actually met him. So I started teaching data analysis at that point, and it got to a point where I was having so many students. I needed to kind of like scale, and I needed someone to help me, assist me. And he came into the picture at that point, and I'm like, okay, you know what? I think I'm going to train you to see what you can actually help me with. So my intention was just to train him, and he can help me with administration. I could kind of like have him as an offshore contractor that will work directly with me. And when I trained him, I found how smart he was. And he wasn't like the best teacher, but I found out he had so much to absorb and he had so much time. And I was able to kind of like walk him through, have him shadow me when I was teaching, see my approach to those teaching. And fast forward to date, he's not only a big data engineer, he also works like he does like teaching in different parts of the world and remotely. He's actually currently in Nigeria and he earns in dollars. And he has his own training set up. People consult with him whenever they have issues. They call him to, like, if they're people that are actually trying to get into tech. Also, I do a lot of introduction and all that stuff, and it's currently leveraging my platform for all that right now. So, and that boils down to say, when there is knowledge, when you have knowledge, there is no limit to where your knowledge can go, especially in this digital world. Like everything goes back to the digital part of things. It's so much opportunity for you, even if you're looking for a job and you've not found the job you're looking for, teaching or selling your knowledge one way you can. Either, even if you're doing it for free, there would be some sort of value exchange if you find your way around it. But there's so much ways you can go about it now. Luckily, TechChack is a platform as a service, software as a service, where you can actually, create an account yourself for free and create any kind of trainings, even if it's training that is specific to your area of interest, even if it's something that is even an extracurricular stuff, how to talk to people, maybe music, maybe some sort of, even if it's tech or whatever you've learned that you think you can impact to people and get paid. Actually, I think it's something that anyone can look into, and there's no limits to it, and you can get paid anywhere across the world. I mean, of course, I'm always more than happy to have follow-up questions around that, just to kind of like stick to the time. But I think having knowledge is global. Like, there is no, when people when people need someone that has knowledge and they need your service, they are ready to go any length to get it. And if you have that service to render, you definitely, you definitely find a lot of opportunities around it if you want to. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Gabriel. Marvin, do you remember the question, or do you want?
Yeah, I do. So what I'm looking for as a VC. So there's a bunch of things. I'm looking really at sort of like specific business models. So my thesis is very specific. I'm looking for European founders. Okay, for the fund specifically, is I'm looking for European founders who are focusing on the US market. And so ultimately it's actually a founder question, and it's a business model question, and a market issue, right? So is this a big enough problem that like that, could this become $1 billion business, more than $1 billion business? Because there are lots of great businesses that are like, 10, 20, 30, 40 million, that's awesome. That's incredible. It's just not at the level of what I do. For, if you want to understand VC, ultimately every deal that I do, because the risk is so high and most of my companies are going to die, and most of them are going to fail, my winners have to make up for the losers. And so every deal that I look at has to be like potentially 50 to 100x. And that means the market needs to be big. That means the sort of like the business model needs to be venture scale. And so I'm looking for that, like, is the business model right? Is a problem sort of like a big problem, right? And do these founders have the capacity to scale and grow? Because like there's some founders that like right problem, right business, but like they either don't have the appetite or don't have the interest, then it's not necessarily a fit, for at least for our vehicle, right? For us to invest. And so these are the things I look for. Hopefully fairly broad, but hopefully makes sense.
Okay. Thank you very much, Marvin, for that. I have a question here, and the question is, if someone who is not into tech but wishes to start a career in data analysis, basically what she's trying to say is that she's not into tech, but she wants to start a career in data analysis. Which programming language would be more preferable and easy for one to learn? I'll say SQL. I'll let you guys go as well.
Well, I have no clue. I'm going to defer to Gabriel.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah. So I think they're probably thinking about programming language from like Python, all of those. The truth is, of course, why Python is great.
Let's speak to the programming language first, and then we'll address the other side. Which programming language would you advise this person to go for? Because that's exactly what she wants to know. So we can then now digress into other things that she can do. What would you advise programming language?
So in terms of programming language, to become a data analyst, you don't have to learn any programming language. Actually, my first data analyst job, I didn't know any programming except queries, like SQL queries.
Exactly.
What I knew.
We're both on the same page with that. SQL, SQL,
Excel, Microsoft Excel, SQL, Power BI. They're like three good facts. Yeah.
So Lydia, your answer is SQL. So Gabriel, you can go ahead. You were trying to say something else to that for her.
Yeah, I was just trying to also, get into like if at all you have to pick up a programming language to sort of further your career in data, it will be Python. Python is like the very go-to language that is very also very easy to learn. Not necessarily easy, but it's very straightforward. Python is more straightforward than a lot of other languages, from my experience at least. It's more human friendly to read and interpret. And that would maybe R, but R is more academic, maybe people that are doing like research programs and all that. But Python is very, very good for data analysis, I would say.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Gabriel. I was going to ask Marvin. Marvin, you have no interest in African markets, or do you currently have some investments there at the moment?
It's not that I don't have any interest in the African market right now. I have done investments. I've done like 5 or 6 investments in the past when I was at 500. It is a market I'm sort of looking at, but I just don't really I haven't spent any time there for a while. And so how I look at it, of just, when you look at sort of like my focus, I look at the way I think about this is sort of, I focus on sort of like 5 different sort of like fronts. And so on 5 years sort of like windows. And so the focus I have right now is on Europe, probably until like 2025, 2026, because of just the tech ecosystem there is, ripe enough, because you don't want to be too early. And so I'm looking at, I'm focusing on Europe for now. My next focus is from 2025 to 2030 is probably Latin America. It's in our backyard. It's reindustrializing. I have a fairly large network over there. And, my guess is Africa is probably more of like a 2030 to 2035. I think there's a lot of infrastructure things that need to come into place. I think the ecosystem is actually incredible from a, from a talent perspective, but
Yeah.
like you can be, but you can have like great talent and be in the middle of nowhere. I think you can still build businesses. I just don't know if you can build venture scale businesses.
Yeah.
And so I'm very, very bullish about Africa overall as like an ecosystem from an entrepreneurship perspective. But
Yeah.
there's a great saying in Silicon Valley. It's like, at least in VC, it's like, being early is the same as being wrong. And so I do think for me, it's a timing question. I think there'll be great businesses being built. I just don't have, right now, just sort of, you have to focus, right? So it's this idea of like, you try to boil the ocean, it's impossible. And so I kind of have an edge right now in Europe. I have a fairly large network, and that's sort of the immediate opportunity, at least for me right now. But in the long run, like I'm going to be investing my goal is to be investing for the rest of my life. And so it is on my, I do see that as the window is there. Like for me, it's like my focus is probably 2030, 2035. Because you got to focus, you got to start somewhere, right?
Yes, thank you. I also have Wale here. Wale, you have a question. Please, can you go ahead?
Yeah, and first and foremost, I want to say I'm very happy to be part of this project. And most of my questions probably have been answered, but there is a personal question I would love to have. I want to direct my question to Mr. Gabriel. I have a daughter. I just came into UK, not up to a month. I have a daughter who has done a bit of tech before we left Nigeria. Precisely, she has done Python. But I just want you to educate me on how to get her more interested in tech, because it's as if she's not really understanding the importance and the power behind being a tech person. So I just want you to encourage me as a father, first and foremost, how can I encourage her the more? Because it's as if she's not really putting interest. Maybe probably we just cajole her to do it when we're in Nigeria and all that. So that's my first question. Then my second question is that for me as a person, well, I won't say I'm young or old, but like I said, what's the first step for me to take? Because I really now realize that being a tech person is very important, because virtually everything is like tech all over the world today. So I need an encouragement for myself, and I want you to also tell me what to do to make my daughter see the beauty in being a tech person, for her to go further in it.
Yeah. Great question, actually. I think the part of and I'll tell you this because I'm kind of like in the same shoes. The only difference is that this is my own brother in this case. And one thing I have studied for the past 5-6 years is it's tough to actually convince people or convince someone to actually see the beauty in tech until they actually want to see that beauty themselves. That's the tricky part. However, one of the things that you can do that I think might have worked is the kind of friends that are surrounded around. If she's like, she has people that are doing tech around her, there'll be much, or she moves around with more people that do tech, there'll be a very high chance of also getting interested in that area. And then she could gradually build an interest, because what got me into tech in the first place, to be honest, was because of money. The money was good when I first saw my first salary was amazing. So that was an incentive for me. But I also have friends that the salary was incentive, but it was not sustainable, because after a while, that became my passion. Like now I just want to do, even if I'm not getting paid, I'm still happy doing it. So I think from a passion perspective, it has to come from within. And also it depends on the age range. And age is also another factor. Like
she's 16 now.
Okay, yeah. I think she's around that. Yeah, she's definitely just a little dicey. I have people that are 15 years old and they're very, very passionate about tech. So it really comes from within. And one thing you can do is also, if she's interested in finding a mentor, preferably the same gender, like a female mentor that would kind of like have conversations with her. That could also be another way to get it out there. And for you, I think there is definitely no limits. There's no age limit or any sort of cap to you getting into tech. I think one thing you can actually do is to first, of course, definitely learning the basics and you can I think, I don't know, maybe from LinkedIn, if you ever want to send me a message, more than happy to send you materials that will help you. But one thing I would say is the discipline to self-learn and dedicate certain times every day or every other day to continuously learning is important. And after the phase of learning, and you can start exposing yourself to projects, meaning you can look out for startups that need interns or any form of like work you can pick up, or even be a freelancer for the time being to build up an experience so you can actually get your first job. But there's definitely a lot of things you can dive into in terms of getting into tech. And I've mentored people that are actually 45, 50, and they're doing absolutely well. So I don't think it's not a question of is it possible. It's really a question of you being ready, putting in the time, and just moving along with it, and having the right people around too.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Gabriel. I'm going to say to Mr. Wale, Mr. Wale, I need you to also allow your daughter to do what she's passionate about, because you never know. Let's just say, for example, she's passionate about fashion. Find out what she can do in fashion. There's tech in fashion as well. So yeah, I think you should just first find out what she likes to do, what she'd rather do, and what is happening in that space technologically. I don't know if I'm making sense. Yeah.
No. I'm really, thank you so much. I think
so. We have just 2 minutes left. Thank you so much. No more questions for now. Thank you so much, Marvin. Thank you so much, Gabriel. We really appreciate it this time. It's really enlightening and educating. I'll just like you guys to say something real quick. 30 seconds each. Marvin, you go first.
Yeah, I would say like get started now, right? Start learning, like take action in general. Don't get into analysis paralysis. Take the pain of just sometimes that feedback will be painful, but like that's good for you. So take the pain.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you.
Great. For me, one thing I would say is whether you start now or you start, in 2 years from now, it's still you have to, whatever you're trying to do, whatever interest you have, is actually best to start it immediately. You're thinking about it and start looking into it. And if you're trying to get into tech, I think a lot of people want to get into tech. I'll tell you, your background does not matter. Either you have a degree or you don't have a degree. Don't get too carried away about that. 80% of the people I've mentored, they come from nursing, they come from engineering, from nursing, from like legal, from things that are not related to tech. And the ability to bring yourself down to actually start afresh, assuming you're starting afresh, is really important. So feel free to leverage that for sure.
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time. We appreciate it. We're rounding off the call now before we get dropped off by Microsoft. Yeah. Nice to meet everyone. We really appreciate it. Thanks so much for your time.
All right.
Thank you so much, Marvin.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Marvin. Thank you, Gabriel. Thank you, Ayo. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Take care, everybody. I wish you all well.
Bye.
Bye.